Welcome back to History and Freemasonry. If you enjoy these deep dives into the craft, its hidden history, its symbols, and its mysteries, please like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications. Your support helps this channel grow and allows us to strengthen our Masonic community together in harmony and in light. Thank you, my friends. Now, let's begin. Crafting the Bill of Rights. Part 1. Did the rights you and I enjoy today, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the right to assemble and to bear arms, begin in the halls of Congress? Or did they first take shape in another room, a candlelit lodge, tiled from the world, where men in aprons voted by secret ballot under the all-seeing eye? Tonight, we're going to walk into that room. Welcome back to History and Freemasonry. The Bill of Rights didn't just fall out of the sky in 1789. It's the product of an entire culture of ideas: the Enlightenment, English common law, colonial experience, and, according to a growing list of writers, Freemasonry. Historians like Stephen C. Bullock in Revolutionary Brotherhood show that 18th century lodges weren't just social clubs. They were laboratories for new ideas about liberty, equality, and fraternity in the American colonies. Margaret C. Jacob, in Living the Enlightenment, goes even further. She argues that European lodges were among the most important places where modern civil society was invented, complete with written constitutions, elections, and free debate. So when we ask, did Masonry influence the Bill of Rights? We're really asking how much of that lodge culture made its way into the first 10 amendments. Imagine a lodge meeting in the mid-1700s. Brothers arrive from different churches, different political factions, sometimes even different countries. And yet, once the lodge is opened, they are all equal on the level. They elect their officers by secret ballot, debate motions under strict rules of order, swear to respect freedom of conscience. Every man is required to believe in a supreme being, but no one dictates his creed. Modern Masonic lecturers like Steve Featherman point out that the core ideals of the Enlightenment, separation of church and state, individual freedoms, and the rights of man, are the same ideals preached in Masonic ritual and practice. He even calls Voltaire's civil liberty philosophy the philosophy behind our Bill of Rights. Gulf Beach Lodge. So, from inside the lodge, the Bill of Rights doesn't look like a sudden invention. It looks like a political translation of a moral world Masons had already been living in. Now, zoom out to the founding generation. Benjamin Franklin is a Grand Master in Pennsylvania and later in Paris. George Washington is initiated in Fredericksburg and becomes the public face of American Masonry. Cross and Compass historian Sarah Fromm shows how colonial lodges helped create a sense of American unity long before independence, spinning a web that linked merchants, printers, officers, and politicians across the colonies. Cross and Compass. When it comes to the Bill of Rights, one name stands out: James Madison, the father of the Bill of Rights. We don't have solid proof that Madison himself was a Mason, but several Masonic historians note how closely his views on religious liberty and church-state separation match Masonic teaching. Cross and Compass. So we have a Masonic Franklin, deeply involved in Enlightenment networks, a Masonic Washington, presiding over a new, religiously plural republic, and a Madison whose ideas line up neatly with both Enlightenment and Masonic ideals. The question isn't, were they taking orders from Grand Lodge? The question is, how much did this shared culture shape what they thought was obvious when they drafted the Bill of Rights? Part 2. Some writers go even further. In a Scottish Rite article titled "The Masonic Seating of Our Commercial Republic," Dr. Patrick Mendes argues that Anderson's Constitutions of the Freemasons, printed by Franklin in 1734 and widely circulated, provided an early federal blueprint. He lists features of Masonic governance that look strikingly familiar: a supreme Grand Lodge with autonomous local lodges, written constitutions that limit power, representation, majority rule, and fiscal oversight, protected freedom of speech within the lodge. Mendes points to what he calls striking similarities between Anderson's constitutions and the Articles of Confederation, the U.S. Constitution, and the Bill of Rights, and calls this one of Freemasonry's public secrets. Add to that later Masonic educators who openly say that democracy and Freemasonry embrace identical ideals, and that the great minds of the Enlightenment, Spinoza, Locke, Voltaire, Franklin, Madison, stood behind both the craft and the American experiment. Gulf Beach Lodge. From this angle, the Bill of Rights isn't just compatible with Masonry. It looks like Masonry's political child, but not everyone is convinced. Back in the 1930s, Bernard Fay painted Freemasonry as a hidden revolutionary network that pulled strings behind the American and French revolutions. Later, scholars have pointed out his anti-Masonic bias and warned that many of his claims are poorly sourced or exaggerated. On the other side, some popular Masonic and patriotic writers simply assume that because many founders were Masons, the entire government is a Masonic project, without the hard archival work to back that up. Serious historians like Bullock and Jacobs sit in the middle. They don't say the Bill of Rights was written in Lodge. They do say that Masonic ideals and practices help shape the mindset of the founding generation, especially ideas about equality, fraternity, religious toleration, and constitutional self-government. So, where does that leave us? If you're looking for a document that says, "Resolved that the First Amendment shall be modeled on the Entered Apprentice lecture," you're not going to find it. What you do find is a web of Masonic networks connecting key founders, lodge rooms where free speech, free thought, and free conscience were practiced decades before 1789, Masonic and Enlightenment writers who openly describe their philosophy as the philosophy behind our Bill of Rights. So, no, the Bill of Rights is not a secret Masonic ritual in disguise. But many of the ideas it protects, speech, conscience, assembly, due process, had already been tested, refined, and lived in the lodge. The founders didn't need to steal those rights from Masonry. For many of them, Masonry was the place where they learned how those rights actually work. If you find Masonic history enlightening, please like, share, and subscribe, and continue your journey in the light of the great architect of the universe. Thank you.